And now it's time for Guerilla Roundup. They'll let you know what happened overnight when things transpire you whilst you sleep. Right there in the loop you keep.
Welcome to the Guerilla Roundup of Day 5 of the second test from Lords. I'm joined tonight by Guerilla Hendo, our true leader. Welcome, Hendo.
Great to be here, Messy. Just trying to absorb everything that's been laid before us today. It's been quite a day.
It has indeed. So England started today at 114 for 4 with Ben Duckett on 50 and Stokes on 29 not out. They went fairly well until Duckett was dismissed, caught by Carey off Hazelwood for 83 from 112 deliveries. This brought, who did it bring? Bairstow to the wicket. Bairstow and Stokes were going reasonably well. And then Johnny Bairstow was officially stumped by Carey off green for 10 runs. We'll talk about this in some detail later, I can assure you, off 22 deliveries. Then Stuart Broad came out. He and Ben Stokes, between them, put on 108, I think it was, for the next wicket. And at the time that Stokes was out, he was out for 155 from 214 balls. And the score had moved to 301 for 7. It was an innings probably played by the only man in the world who could play it. It was quite extraordinary, and we'll talk about that more. Once Stokes was out, Broad, who'd put up good resistance for 36 balls, was out for 11 very quickly, followed by Ollie Robinson, caught by Smith off Cummins for 1. And that left the 10th wicket with Tongue and Anderson together, who put up some resistance before finally Josh Tongue was bowled by Stark for 19 off 26, leaving Jimmy Anderson not out once again on 3 off 23 deliveries. England were dismissed for 327, and eventually Australia won by 43 runs. But there's a lot of story behind that. And I wonder, Hendo, if you'd like to describe what were the key moments for you during the day.
Well, I suppose, we've come in so many times on Guerilla Cricket with England 3 or 4 down, and we sat here and we said, well, could they do it? If they do this, if someone does that, someone gets 150, someone else just chips in, England could get over the line. I mean, it was an enormously hard task, really, 371. Never been chased at Lords for sure, and England only managed that number of runs in a chase last year against India. But Ben Duckett and Ben Stokes batted really well. Ben Duckett was his normal rather fidgety self. He was pulling a lot of deliveries, but he was getting over the top of them and playing in a controlled manner, I think. And it was a little bit of a disappointment when he went with a score at 177. He'd made 83. People will say maybe he'd had a little bit of luck earlier in the innings, so these things even themselves out. But when he went, really there was only Johnny Bairstow and Ben Stokes standing between England and defeat. And of course, that incident involving Johnny Bairstow, after they'd got the score to 193, we were in the at the end of the 52nd over, bowled by Cameron Green. And, all hell it resulted from Alex Carey's particular brand of cricket, which was...
You want to describe exactly what happened for those who didn't see it,
I remember rightly, it was a bouncer that Johnny Bairstow ducked under. It was the final ball of the over. He then scratched his back boot in the crease and looked around to see whether he thought he was clear to go out and have a little chat with Ben Stokes. And as he did so, the wickets were thrown down by Green from some distance.
By Carey.
By Carey.
Yeah.
And he was given out after a referral. Now, in my day, that would be considered a run out. But in this day and age, that's considered a stumping. Now, I've gone quite public on my views on Twitter. I thought that while technically it probably was within the rights of the wicketkeeper to do that and Australia to do that, seems to me a little bit underhand. Even dare we say unsporting. There was talk that he'd done it a couple of times earlier, that Johnny Bairstow was on the walk, which kind of makes Bairstow slightly culpable if he hadn't noticed that he was doing that. But if he was doing it, it kind of also suggests there was an element of premeditation. So I don't know. It leaves a bit of a sour taste. People will say it's not cheating. It isn't cheating. But as I understand it, looking at the applicable parts of the law, and this is where the law is probably at fault, not worded particularly well, that the ball can be considered dead when it is in the wicketkeeper's or the bowler's hand. Now, of course, that's ridiculous, really, because on that basis, you would never get a stumping because the ball has to be taken by the wicketkeeper before you get a stumping. But I think the other crucial part about that.
There is an important point there. I think it says settled in the wicketkeeper's.
Sorry, settled in the wicketkeeper's hand, and that is the crucial word, because later in the same law it says settled will be decided by the opinion of the umpire. So that's a tricky one as well, because do you then say that the on-field umpire has to rule on this, or does it go upstairs? It's a tricky one. I don't know, but obviously from that point on, the crowd was furious, and Ben Stokes was inspired.
Yes,
he took his anger, anger out on the ball, and did it very successfully, to the point where people thought, hang on, could this be another Ben Stokes miracle to follow the miracle of Headingley in 2019? You know, being the pessimistic soul that I generally am, I thought that's unlikely. I mean, he was a genius to have done that in 2019. To expect him to do it a second time in such circumstances would have been probably egging the pudding a little bit too much. It was still an absolutely brilliant innings. He hit 3 sixes off Cameron Green to go from, what was it, 88, sorry, 82.
I think.
82, because he hit 3 sixes
yes,
in a row. So he went from 82 to 100 in 3 balls. And it worried Australia, undoubtedly. And Stuart Broad, you know, rather than throwing his wicket away, was being protected to a certain degree, but was also prepared to take a few blows.
So confess something to me, Hendo. Did that naughty devil Hope make a slight appearance in your mind?
Of course it does. I mean, it will do. I mean, it goes up and down, doesn't it? When Ben Duckett was out there with Stokes, it was you were thinking it, but experience tells you that these things happen very rarely. So
yes.
The chances of it were quite slim. But I think, you know, what England did do is expose some insecurities in the Australian team about how to deal with Bazball. You may look at the way England have played Bazball and say, well, hang on, they're dismantling it to a certain extent. They've got 2 victories. But I think actually the dismantling has more or less come from England themselves.
Yes.
When they've taken it a step too far. And, you know, you look back to that crucial period on the second day when England 180 for 1 and 2 set batsmen have given it away, and the best batsman in England's team has also given it away. And you really can't give those sort of wickets away and still expect to win matches, I don't think.
I agree entirely, but I would argue that this isn't Bazball. This happened 4 years ago, and Australia lost the plot then too.
That's a fair point. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nothing new. It's Stokes. Stokes has that magic about the way he plays that challenges the orthodoxy in such a way that I think Australia were hopeless in the way they bowled to him. They continued to bowl short. They fed his hook for about an hour in a way that he just relished. And I think this whole Bazball thing is it's accommodates what Stokes does here, because it's about inspiration and freedom and lack of fear. But this has been in Stokes all that time, and he has that capacity. And you're right, the adrenaline was flowing in him so strongly after the anger about what happened with Bairstow that I don't think it could have happened. And the weird thing too was that Broad was very good in supporting him. He shielded him from the strike a lot. And once he'd gone, Broad just lost it and went back to the old Broad.
I mean, I'm not sure the Broad lost it. I think it was Ollie Robinson who went before him, wasn't it? And
Oh, yeah,
being quite critical on air about Ollie Robinson. I mean, he really is
yeah,
talking the talk, but failing to walk the walk. I'm afraid. He's dished it out. He's bowled. To be honest, as Matthew Hayden, he's bowled a lot of new nuts in this game. 77 miles an hour. Absolutely. He's got to be about 82 or 83 if he's going to have a serious Test career, I think.
yes,
And I thought also, it was disappointing. If you're going to take your inspiration from Ben Stokes, you don't actually then turn around and say, we can't do this without Ben Stokes.
yeah,
Ben Stokes is the man who's supposed to make you feel more confident and better. And Ollie Robinson just came out and threw his ball. I think it was his sixth delivery, a bouncer, which he could have ducked under. He tries to pull and he gets caught by Steve Smith. England needed to still believe that those 70-odd runs that they needed when Stokes went, although it's a massive blow and it means that your chances have got a lot slimmer. Stuart Broad has been out there for 2 hours. Ollie Robinson can't stay out there for more than 6 minutes.
yes, yes,
And I really think that Ollie Robinson's position in this team has to be looked at seriously as if we're looking ahead to Headingley. I know there may be injury doubts about people. I mean, will Ben Stokes be able to get up again after that? And play another 5-day test? It's a tricky one. Ollie Pope, we don't quite know what the situation is with his shoulder. Jimmy Anderson, who has bowled and fielded poorly in this game, not bowled poorly, but not bowled to the standards that we know he can. And he seems to be frustrated by these pitches, which are benign, really.
absolutely.
And if he can't, England's Bazball approach would work. I think I said this to you this morning, Messy. Better on a really green pitch, because although that makes the Australian lineup stronger, because they have got a stronger bowling lineup, they're all quicker than what England have got, pretty much apart from perhaps Tongue at times. They really need to play on those pitches and bat in that sort of rather haphazard way when they know that their name is on a particular delivery.
Yes.
I think that's the most disappointing thing about the fall from 180 for 1 and losing those 3 wickets was that England was so ahead of the game at that point. And they didn't look like losing a wicket, and yet they gave 3 of them away. And that's where that, to me, despite Ben Stokes and despite Ben Duckett having 2 good innings in this Test match, that's where the game has been lost.
I agree entirely. It seems to me that there's a switch somewhere that gets switched on where some people have so instilled in this thing that they have to attack no matter what, that they forget. I mean, Root is probably a big culprit in this, that he has the skills, especially on a pitch like this, to stay there for a very long period of time, make runs without putting himself in danger. And all of a sudden it just went. But I've got to say the Australians were just as bad. They didn't deal with the short ball well. I thought they had a real lack of capacity to learn how to do with the short ball. I do think there's a question to be asked about how the short balls are dealt with, because frankly it was boring as batshit yesterday when we had over after over being bowled to Green, for example, and him just ducking out of the way. That's, there were balls clearly there that logically ought to be wides. They aren't within the law a lot of the time, although some of the overhead ones are questionable. But I do think, if anything, in terms of the laws needs to be done, it needs to be in relation to what is actually a ball that is capable of being hit, rather than a ball that has to be outside the return crease. But the other thing in relation to all of this was, I think it did expose something in Australia in terms of their failure to be able to deal with the circumstances in a logical way. At one stage, they had all 9 fielders on the boundary, bowling short balls to Stokes, which I think suited him for quite a while, and not seeking to attack and take wickets. Now I know they were uh, incapacitated by the loss of Lyon, and I think if Lyon had been playing, this game would have probably been over before lunch. But to do that was an admission of defeat to a large extent, and if they'd lost it, it would have been on their own back because they really didn't do it. Even when Tongue and Anderson were batting together for the last wicket, and I think they did a sterling job in the circumstances. They weren't bowling at the stumps for most of the time. Finally, Stark bowled at the stumps and bowled Tongue with a decent delivery, but he hadn't tried that previously. So I
Well, I don't
think
think.
Australia were hugely at fault as well in terms of their fielding strategies.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is an admission of defeat if you have 9 men on the boundary. I said on commentary that I would never have done it when any time I was captain of a team. I wouldn't have done it because it seems like an admission of defeat. Obviously, I haven't captained in the pressures of an Ash cauldron, and that can make a bit difference. That could make your thinking quite scrambled. And I suppose the thing is, you're basically when Ben Stokes is going like that, you're just hoping that he miscues one, and you've got enough people around the boundary that one should fall into their hands. And ultimately, that is what happened because
Yes.
although, he went for one outside the off stump, it climbed and he got a sort of bottom edge, I suppose, and it looped up and there was nobody within, 40 yards of catching it, apart from Alex Carey, who had to run after it. And, Ben Stokes might consider himself a little bit unlucky that it didn't fall somewhere else.
Yeah.
But he still had to run around to a position of a kind of a round backward point to take the catch. So yeah, I think there were some things for Australia to think about, and maybe the fact that they've gone 2-0 up, that's covered some of their weaknesses, whereas England's have been well exposed. I mean, I think also we have to go back and say if England lost the game on the second evening after tea, Australia won it after tea yesterday, didn't they? With that incredible burst from Mitchell Starc. I mean, Ollie Pope must wonder, why the gods of cricket have got it in for him. He's struggling with shoulder injuries, and his last 2 dismissals in second innings have been to absolute world-beating deliveries. One from Cummins, a wonderful in-swinging Yorker, and then that one yesterday that swung in at incredible pace from a good way outside the off stump and took out his middle. And I don't think many players, even at their best, would have dealt well with that delivery. So, in the end, it's come down to the fact that Australia's bowling has proved better at getting wickets in difficult conditions, and I think that's kind of separated the two teams. You can look back at the fact that they lost 8 wickets for 100 yesterday, Australia, but they certainly didn't start going after the England short bowling early on. There were a couple of deliveries. Smith, I think, will be a bit disappointed with the way he got out. But it does show you on a slow pitch, on a benign pitch where the ball doesn't really get up as much as you think it should. There is often a bit of loopy bounce when it's dug in. That it then becomes difficult to time the ball. You don't, if the ball's coming onto you really quick and it's high, there's a chance that you're going to get a top edge and it's going to fly for 6. But actually, when it's as slow as that, it's probably just going to be a top edge and caught at third man or long.
Well, I mean, this raises the question of when we get to Edgbaston, God, I hope there's some life in the wicket. We don't want. Headingley. Yeah, we don't want another pitch like this on Thursday, do we? Oh God.
No, I would hope not. I mean, I hope if England are making these pitches to their own demands, then it's not serving them very well. No. I don't know whether that's true. I mean, we saw talk at the beginning of the series that they wanted hard, fast pitches. I think they want green tops, and they want to then that, as I said, that would give them the opportunity to play baseball without thinking necessarily that they're throwing their wickets away. Because
absolutely,
if the ball is moving around and it's very difficult to bat, that's when you've got to chance your arm and try something a little bit different. But it goes back to that evening on Thursday, and that's just, was it Thursday or Friday? It's just,
I think it's Thursday. So the lessons for both sides from this, I mean, I'm seriously hoping that we don't continue to be lied to by McCullum and co about how well these people did. Bairstow was appalling as a wicketkeeper during this game. I think everybody got to see that. Folkes has to keep wicket, doesn't he? Surely.
Well, I mean, the thing is now they only named a squad for the first 2 tests, so presumably they've got to name a new squad tomorrow. If I'm right in that, if I'm not mistaken, I don't have any updates
no,
to that.
I think that's right.
Yeah, I mean, a lot will depend, I suppose, on whether Ollie Pope is going to be fit. Because if Ollie Pope is not fit, then you could argue that everyone moves up one, and Ben Folkes slips in at number 8. Sorry, at number 7. They might prefer to have a more recognised batsman. But to be honest, Ben Folkes does bring a bit of stability when it's needed. To me, he's an intelligent, sensible cricketer. And he will play his way, irrespective of the Bazball edict. He will still try, he will try to be positive, but he will also understand there are times when you just have to stick in. And that's the way you're going to keep your the position that you've created of a certain amount of dominance, which is what England lost it. So he might come in. I don't know. It's very difficult to know what England will do. I suppose there's a chance that Dan Lawrence could be given an opportunity, and he's another attacking batsman, but he does favour the leg side. Is he necessarily going to be the answer against good swing bowling?
Presumably Wood has to come in. Jimmy Anderson has to be rested, and you wonder about Robinson getting a rest. Are there other stocks? Is there a spinner? Is Rian Ahmed going to get a game at last?
Well, I think, obviously they're going to make a judgment about the pitch, but I think, give Rian Ahmed a go. I mean, in a sense, England are close to losing this series. I mean, you normally find England 2-0 down in Australia. You don't often find them 2-0 down in England. Yes. But they've got to do something. They've got to be positive. They've got to believe that their spinner can do something. I mean, also think back to, was it yesterday when Mitchell Starc was hitting that, almost a 6. And Rian Ahmed, who's just on as a substitute fielder, produced the pieces of fielding in Test cricket that was just incredible, absolutely incredible.
That was absolutely spectacular. Yeah.
So I think he's got the ticker for this sort of game, and I think Josh Tongue has shown that. He wasn't necessarily going to play in this match, but he's actually probably ended up as the most impressive bowler. Stuart Broad actually bowled pretty well, I thought.
Yeah.
I don't like the way that Broad is always clumped in with Jimmy Anderson. They're almost 4 years apart in age.
Yeah.
I still think that Stuart Broad has got a lot going for him, unless he's worn out. I think he should play. So I think Broad should play, Wood should play, Rian Ahmed should play, and Jimmy Anderson and Ollie Robinson should be left out. But of course, will Ben Stokes be fit? That's the other thing we've got to think about.
Wow.
He's played incredible innings on one leg.
Yes.
He's bowled those overs yesterday after ignoring himself for the best part of 70 overs. He suddenly brings himself on and bowls 12 on the bounce. And you think, he must be utterly physically exhausted. Not to mention emotionally so.
Yes,
at the end of that.
Yeah. You can guarantee he won't be fit, but will he be able to play is the question. Because basically when he came, I think, to the Ireland test, he said, if I can walk, I'll play. And, nobody else has that sort of fitness test, do they? But you wouldn't do without him, would you? If you could have
also, you've got to remember that Australia are likely to have to make a judgment on not on Nathan Lyon. The chances are he's not going to be playing, but they're going to have to decide whether they bring Todd Murphy into the.
I'm almost certain they'll bring Murphy in. I think it's a great opportunity to give him experience. I mean, he's not played in England. He played really well in India. And
okay, but let's talk about those. I mean, Indian pitches are different from English pitches.
Oh yes, although Ahmedabad was not a great pitch to be bowling on. It was a bit like Edgbaston, and he bowled well continuously for a very long period of time without in any way showing the lack of experience that he had. I think Hazelwood is due for a rest at the very least. I'd like to see Nisa play. I don't think they can actually bring him in because he's not really in the squad. They'll probably bring Boland back in. But I think Australia are blessed to have that troop of bowlers available to them in a way that England doesn't.
Yeah, and just going back to the point about Todd Murphy is that, I mean, he's still okay. He's played that series in India, but he's still relatively inexperienced, and he's certainly
Yes.
inexperienced in conditions. So if England's argument is we're not going to play a spinner because we don't think it's going to spin, and he's too inexperienced, I think that's a moot point really, because Australia are going to have to do the same thing. So I think it's a perfect opportunity to get him in. The Ashes are almost gone, possibly could be gone. And so England, if they believe in this positive mindset, then bringing someone young in like that, and even if he doesn't have a great game, you've exposed him to the highest level under a lot of pressure in front of a big crowd, and I think that would be a good thing for his future development.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we better wrap it up there. Thank you so much, Hendo. The Twitter of the day I had set aside, but unfortunately, because my Twitter is being stuffed up by Elon Musk, I can't actually call it up again. So I'm going to have to pass on the Twitter of the day, I'm afraid. But the Guerilla of the day is undoubtedly Hendo for taking it all in the spirit of cricket. And the spirit of cricket is a much misused term, but there were adversities that you negotiated today in a very healthy way, Hendo, and we can have disagreements without being in any way abusive to one another. And I love the fact that you are so resilient as to be able to keep doing that. And I really appreciate that. So you are our Guerilla of the day, I may say.
Yay! I've been successful at something at last. It's only taken 60 years. I noticed a tweet, which is of Brenda McCullum talking to one of our broadcasting rivals on the relations between the two sides of a dramatic day at Lords. I can't imagine we'll be having a beer anytime soon. So there we go. Set it up for Headingley, Leeds, the Western Terrace. Oh my God, I can't wait. It's going to be fun.
It is going to be fun. So thank you all for being with us. If you like this, please click the like button below and subscribe. We would really appreciate any support you can give us. You can go to the page patreon.com/Guerilla Cricket and become a Patreon or make a contribution to us on a one-off basis if that's all you're able to do. But we would love your support. And of course, we're doing this in partnership with Ponting Wines. The close of play wine is the appropriate one for the roundup we do. If you go to the GuerillaCricket.com website, right on the front there, you'll see an article about about Ponting Wines and a link to the Ponting Wines website, which will give you a 15% discount. The code is Ashes GC Ashes 2023. Had a brain fade there, and it'll give you 15% off, and it's well worth having. So thank you all very much for being with us. We welcome your comments, your tweets. Comments probably is the best way at the moment, given the way Twitter is. And we'll see you on Thursday at Headingley. Thank you very much for being with us, Hendo.
Cheers.
And now it's time for Guerilla Roundup. They'll let you know